Hey there, planners. I'm starting to think about next year and what types of notebooks and planners I'm going to be using, and I'm really thinking very closely about the features that I want in my planner. So to that end, I'm going to be going through some of my very favorite blank notebooks that I've turned into bullet journals or planners and talking about what are those key features. And I'm going to be doing that using two absolutely gorgeous new notebooks that I received from Tiefossi. So go grab your planners and let's get planning. For years and years, I have been turning blank notebooks into the planners that I want because I want my planner to be very, very customizable and easy to use. And so I've got a stack here of some of my very favorite notebooks that I've used in the past. Stalogy, of course, is at the top of the list. I've got a Scribbles That Matter, which I religiously used for years and years. This is a fairly new one to me. This is a moleskin notebook, and then I also have a Archer and Olive notebook. And what I'm most excited to talk about today are these two beauties, which were sent to me to test out and try and share with you guys. These are from Tiefossi. They're two journals, A5 journals. I'm going to be unboxing them today, and I really want to focus on what are the features of a notebook or a planner that you should be thinking about as you're making your selection, reading descriptions, shopping, comparing. Let's talk about what are those features that you should really be on the lookout for and considering. So I'm going to slide everything else out of the way and just talk about these two as I unbox them. All right, first of all, can we just talk about this beautiful box? I absolutely love this box and the way it really showcases the front cover of your notebook. Absolutely gorgeous. So I always appreciate packaging. I'm always evaluating packaging when companies send me something or I'm purchasing something from a company. So Tiefossi reached out and asked if I would like to try out a couple of their journals. And of course I said yes, because this is a new brand to me that I was not familiar with. And I love to take blank notebooks and turn them into the planners that I really want. I love the flexibility of being able to do that and using, you know, whatever tools it is that I need in that season. And while I'm not quite sure how I'm going to be using these in 2026, I know I am, because they are absolutely gorgeous. So I guess the first feature I would talk about is, what does it look like on the outside? And this is pretty easy to see if you are shopping in person or online for a new notebook or planner, just looking at the aesthetic of the planner. So I tried to pick two that are slightly different. This one is Vintage Purple notebook, and this one is the Moonlight Melody Sand. So absolutely gorgeous. This one is pretty flat, but it's got this amazing pattern on the front in this really deep purple color. And then this one is definitely more decorative. It's got this beautiful little bird scene, and you can see the foiling, and then also the pages are gilded, gold gilded on the edge, and there's even a little decoration on the back. So a little bit different. You know, this one to me is more sort of muted in design, but still absolutely gorgeous with all of these details. And then this one is like, you know, showstopper, beautiful artwork. Okay, so that's the first thing to keep in mind when you're looking. Some of my other, Archer and Olive is definitely one that you can get some decoration from. This was from a sort of, I can't remember what the name of the theme, but it was like an ocean themed one that they had a couple years ago that I picked up. But they tend to have more decorative elements. Moleskin is pretty plain. You can get some different coloring, but you're going to just get basically a pretty basic notebook. Scribbles That Matter have two different designs, the smooth sort of basic design, and then they also have a design that has more icons on it that are like laser cut into the front, somewhat like this one is. And they come in a set range of colors. The colors can go in and out of stock. I have found them on Amazon and on the Scribbles That Matter website. And then Stalogy is probably more along the lines of moleskin, where it's very, very plain. And you can get other colors. There are limited edition colors. I never worry about that because I always put a clear cover with some decorative paper on it when I get Astology. So those are just, some examples of other notebooks and the decorative outsides. And it really depends on how you want to use it. If you plan to put your notebook, like I do with the Astology, I always put it in a leather cover, or at a minimum, a clear cover. And so I'm not really seeing this cover. So, that I don't really care what the outside looks like. These are not ones, just because of the thickness and the thickness of the cover itself. They're not really ones that I would put in inside any other cover. I would just want to keep the notebook like this, and so they're absolutely beautiful. Speaking of covers, let's talk about the covers since we're right here at it. These are very hard, sort of not pliable, hard cover, some form of cardboard, very thick cardboard. So they're going to be very sturdy. You could, toss this around and it might get scuffs on the outside, but the cover is going to stay intact. Whereas the Astology is going to be, it is much more pliable. It's sort of like just thick paper, not cardboard like this, but more just thick paper. This is not going to be as durable, and it could actually rip. So something to think about when you're looking at your journal. How do you want to carry it? How protective does it need to be? How mobile is it going to be? Are you going to be taking it around with you, tossing it in a bag or a backpack or a purse, or is it going to sit at home? And that may help you, sort of think about the cover that you need and how much durability and stability you need. So another thing is, with the soft cover notebooks, if I'm trying to write, it can be, if I don't have something hard to sit on, if I'm trying to write in my lap, it can actually be a little bit more difficult, whereas the hardcover is easier to write on. So a couple of factors there. Size, I'm not going to go into all the sizes. Of course, I have experimented with a ton of sizes. These are A5. I did notice Tiefossi has a lot of other sizes to choose from, so a really great selection to choose from on their website. So you could definitely go different routes with the sizes. I think everything I have here that I'm comparing today is A5. Speaking of selection on the website, I was super impressed with Tiefossi's website and how much selection they have available to choose from. And that's not always the case with companies like Scribbles That Matter or Archer and Olive. Things go in and out of stock, and sometimes if you miss something that you really wanted to pick up, if it's out of stock, it's never coming back again. I don't have enough experience with Tiefossi to know if certain designs will go out of stock and never come back again, but what I do know is there were 10 pages of notebooks for me to choose from that were all in stock and available on their website when I went to look. So tons of options, and I really like that. I like to be able to personalize. Sometimes I will have like a color of the year, or I want to pick different designs for different seasons, and just having that availability to shop from is awesome. All right, a couple things that you can see right on the outside as well. We've got a couple of bookmark ribbons here. So I rarely use these in my notebooks, but if you do like to use these, then you'll definitely want to keep an eye out for those. Pen loops. I always need a pen loop if I've got my notebook in a cover, or if I'm just using a notebook. I have to have a pen loop because every notebook needs a pen. It just does. And these are actually very well designed, glued into the binding, so that's not going anywhere. I do for notebooks like the Astology or notebooks that don't come with pen loops, I will buy pen loops off Amazon and stick them down in the back. However, you're always going to find that your pens are going to be more sturdy when the pen loop is sewn in. Also, and this is a really great example of this, do you see how the placement of the pens is different? To me, that matters, and here's why. If I'm using this and I had a really large pen, it might stick above the top there, right? Just keep that in mind of where your placement is, whereas this one is more in the middle sewn in the middle, and I could have a larger pen and it's going to sit right in the middle of the notebook. So just pay attention to that too. You know, sometimes I have found notebooks where the pen loop is just too high and it actually causes the pen to stick above, or too low and it causes the pen to stick out the bottom, and that's just not very useful. So, but it is very nice. These both work and they're great. I'm not sure why the placement is different of the pen loop. But I do love the fact that the pen loop matches, and these are those really good quality stretchy ones. The other thing to notice is that both of these notebooks do have the strap to actually, the book band to actually keep them closed. I find that really handy. These type of notebooks tend to expand as you use them. So as you write on the pages, or, you know, put different mediums on the pages or tip things in, they will get a little thicker. And it's really nice to have this to keep it closed, since you're probably not going to want to put a cover on these gorgeous notebooks. All right, now it's time to get inside. I'm pretty sure that both of these notebooks have the same number of pages, but I'm going to check, and I can check because these notebooks have numbered pages, and that is definitely the feature I'm going to talk about next. So 190 pages and 192 pages. So we'll take a look at the 192 page one. 192 pages, that's a ton of pages. One thing I really like to do when I am sitting down to research and purchase a notebook is to think about how many pages I need. How long do I expect this notebook to last me? Can I calculate sort of the average number of pages that I'm going to be using each month? You know, are there certain setup pages or notes pages I know I'm going to need? If I can do that math, I can kind of calculate somewhat around, get an idea of how many pages I will need in my notebook. I know myself, and I know one notebook is never going to last me the full year. So do I expect it to last a month? Do I expect it to last a full quarter? Just kind of doing that math. It is so nice that the pages are already numbered. One thing I typically do in every one of my notebooks is to go through and number the pages. I like to keep an index. Some people don't. I keep an index not for when I'm currently using it, but for in the future. Future me, when I pick up the notebook and I want to find something in it, I can always reference the page numbers. I also use it if I'm taking notes on this page, and then, you know, a week or so later, I'm taking notes about the same thing. I will come back to this page and say, hey, this continues on page 82. And then I can flip back to it. So page numbers are really nice. Now, they're not a must-have because you can always go in and write your own page numbers. But page numbers are printed page numbers are very nice to have and save you a lot of time. Let's talk about the paper for a minute. So the paper in both of these notebooks from Tiefossi is bright white. So this is bright white paper, meaning the colors that you use are really going to come through on here. Some people don't like bright white. I love it. I love bright white paper. I do not like cream colored and off-white colored paper. It's one of the major problems I have with the Hobonichi Weeks. It's hard for me to use that color paper. So I love that. There's also, because this is dot grid, there is a very faint dot grid. It's faint so that it doesn't really take over, but it's not too faint because my eyes are getting a little old, guys, and I struggle with some of the lighter grid to see it. And that is actually becoming a problem for me in the Stalogy. It is a really, really light grid, and I'll show you an example. It's a really light grid, and sometimes I actually struggle to see this in certain lights. Here I've got super bright lights, 2 windows right here, so super bright lights, and it's easy to see. I will note you can see that the paper is not as bright white as, it's not very cream colored, but it's not as bright white as the Tiefossi paper either. So, and then really what shines most about this paper is the thickness. This is 160 GSM. You're not going to find a lot of notebooks that you can purchase that have GSM higher than 160, and that just is about the thickness of the paper. But why that's important is the types of inks or other materials like watercolors or paints that you want to use in your notebook. There's not a lot that's going to bleed through 160 GSM. I would say probably alcohol markers would bleed through. So just because alcohol markers bleed through everything except alcohol marker paper. Other than that, you're not going to have to worry much about things bleeding through, or definitely no ghosting coming through the other side. That shadow, once you write on one page, it shows up on the other. You're not going to have to worry about that on 160 GSM paper. So if you want to have the freedom to use whatever markers you want to use, whatever paints you want to use, and get as creative as you want to, and not have to worry about things going through to the next page, this is a fantastic option. And I believe most of the Tiefossi notebooks have 160 GSM. So you've got a ton of options there. Now, the thick paper means that the book is thick. So this is almost 200 pages, and you can see how thick it already is. And it will bulk up as you use it. But if that doesn't matter to you, and you actually, that's what you want to do, and you're not planning to tape a bunch of things in here, you should be fine. If you are planning to tape a bunch of things in here and add a bunch of tip-ins, just be mindful that your book is going to bulk up quite a bit, which is going to mean it's hard to close, and it will put strain on the binding. But the paper is gorgeous. I mean, it's really gorgeous, and you can see here where it's sewn in, not stapled. So the binding is really strong. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm also noticing that I can get it to lay flat pretty easily. Like this book is going to be easy to train to lay flat, which is really nice. In the back, it has a little pocket here. So if you wanted to put some sticky notes or receipts, or whatever you might want to stick in the back, some ephemera, things you pick up, you can stick it there. I also noticed in the front cover, so you've got this really great "This Book Belongs To" section, but you've also got this really nice foiled Tiefossi logo on the front, which is nice. That's really pretty. And then it goes right into page 1. So no like pre-printed index, no pre-printed stuff in this planner. So you have all of the flexibility to turn this into whatever you want. So, I mean, this is absolutely gorgeous. These are gorgeous notebooks and have a ton of features that I certainly am looking for when I'm thinking about that traditional bullet journal. If you have never tried out this brand, I would highly recommend you go check it out. I will have a link down in the description box to where you can go check out these 2 notebooks. I really appreciate Tiefossi sending me these 2 notebooks for me to check out and experience. I love learning about new brands, and this is definitely a place that I will be shopping in the future because of all the selection. And being able to find the exact notebook I want when I want it is, kind of important to me. So thanks so much for tuning in for this. I hope this gives you some ideas for you to be thinking about as you're looking for your next perfect notebook. What features do you look for? If you have something that I didn't mention, let me know that down in the comments below. What's really important to you? What's your must-have in your notebooks? If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to Planning Annie for more content like this, and as always, thanks for planning with me.